At the beginning, there was nothing that seemed out of the ordinary. A small, under-the-radar branch of a corporate giant, tucked away in a worn two-story building that had seen better days. The air was thick with indifference, the coffee smelled a little too burnt, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that eerie glow that made everything feel a little too gray. I wasn't here for anything special, really just another corporate cog moving in, doing my part for the company. Or so I thought. My name? Well, that's not important, at least not yet. Just another face in the crowd, working quietly, blending in, doing what I do. That was until I met the guy who ran the place. Let's call him Gary. Gary, the sales manager, had this way about him that immediately rubbed everyone wrong. The first time I saw him, he had this smug, almost lazy smile that said, "I own this place." And maybe, in his world, he did. He had that loud, overbearing attitude that made the air feel thick with tension whenever he walked into a room. He didn't have to say much. It was the way he looked at people, like they were beneath him, just waiting to be used and discarded. Gary wasn't just some manager who liked to bark orders. No, he was the kind of guy who had perfected the art of belittling others while taking advantage of them at every opportunity. One morning, I watched him walk into the break room, grab a sandwich from a younger woman's desk without asking, of course, and take a big bite as if he owned it. The woman blinked, obviously stunned, but said nothing. She didn't have to. The message was clear. Gary was untouchable. This wasn't just about food either. He had this knack for taking things. A phone charger here, someone else's pen, they're always the little things. He didn't steal because he needed to. He did it because he could. And no one dared to question him. People just accepted it, gritted their teeth, and moved on. Each little act of theft just another notch in his belt of control. He walked around like he owned the place, and honestly, everyone let him. But I wasn't just some observer in the back. No, I had a mission. And it wasn't long before I saw enough. The complaints from my office at headquarters were mounting. Things like unsafe, hostile, unwelcoming. People complained, but they didn't know how to fight back. The reports were vague, hard to pin down, but the undercurrent was there. A toxic, oppressive culture that had everyone walking on eggshells. I couldn't ignore it. So, I went undercover. Just a quiet observer, someone blending in with the crowd. No fancy title. No VIP treatment. Just Angela Monroe, marketing support. I saw it all. How Gary belittled people. How he stole. How he demanded respect without giving any. How people who were supposed to be his equals or even superiors took it without question. I sat there, day after day, watching this man slowly destroy whatever respect had been left in that office. It was painful, and it was the kind of pain you don't immediately understand. Not until you see it every day, in the faces of the people around you. But I was here for a reason. I wasn't just here to complain. I wanted to see it all for myself. I wanted to understand the truth. And then came the day that changed everything. It started simple enough. I was sitting at my desk, just another regular day, when Gary walked by and without asking took my phone charger. Mine vanished again, he muttered, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I didn't respond right away, just watched him calmly. I made a mental note. He was testing me, just like he tested everyone else. But this time, I wasn't just going to let it slide. But the real turning point came when he did something I couldn't just ignore. It was around lunchtime, and the office was buzzing with the usual tension. Employees in the break room, exchanging quick glances, trying not to look nervous. And then Gary walked in, loud as ever, making his presence felt. He didn't have food in his hands, though. He didn't need to. Instead, he grabbed the takeout menu and made a show of ordering a huge meal. Pad Thai, beef curry, spring rolls, the whole works. When the order came in, he slapped the receipt on the table, his usual cocky grin plastered on his face. "You folks can split it," he said, adding, "just keep the change from whatever you were planning." Nobody protested. Nobody said a word. They just nodded, their eyes down, and went back to eating their cold lunches in silence. It was pathetic, but I wasn't just sitting there anymore. I had seen enough. I had to do something. Gary's behavior didn't stop there. No, he had to take it a step further. After his lunch, I stepped out for a brief phone call. When I came back, I noticed something was off. My laptop was gone. I looked around the office, and there it was, sitting on Gary's desk. My personal laptop, one that I had never left unattended, sitting open with a coffee cup dangerously close to it. Gary had taken it. Again, without asking. I approached him, trying to keep my voice calm. "That's my laptop," I said, trying to keep the confrontation professional. He barely looked up. "Yeah, mine died. Had to use this one," he replied, shrugging. But when I looked at the screen, the coffee stain was already there, dripping down the side of the keyboard. He had spilled coffee all over it. "You spilled coffee on it," I said, my voice lowering now, a sharp edge creeping in. He just shrugged it off, as if it were no big deal. "Stuff happens," he said, dismissing my concern. But I wasn't Havying it anymore. "You're going to reimburse me," I said firmly. His response was immediate. "Reimburse you? You think I'm paying for your mistake? You brought your junk in here and left it in a public space. Don't make this about you." The room fell silent. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the office on us, frozen in place, too afraid to speak up. But I wasn't going to back down. I was done being quiet. "You're fired," he said, with that typical arrogant sneer. "Pack up your stuff and leave now." I didn't argue. I just picked up my things, laptop, bag, lunch, and calmly walked out the door. Before I left, though, I turned and looked at him. "You've made a grave mistake," I said, just loud enough for him to hear. And then I left. The next day, I came back. But not as marketing support. No, this time, I was Angela Monroe, CEO. Gary was sitting at his desk, still smug as ever, probably thinking he had won. He had no idea what was coming. I walked through the door, and immediately, his smirk faltered. He hadn't recognized me, but that didn't last long. "Wait a minute," he said, his voice cracking as he finally realized who I was. "You can't just walk in here. You don't belong here." But I didn't need to say a word. I had already made my point. I was in control now, and Gary was done. "I'm here to witness the executive transition of authority," Marcus Lane, the general counsel, said, stepping up beside me. And that's when everything changed for Gary. He tried to backpedal, to save face, but there was no escape. Marcus handed him the termination notice. "Your employment is terminated, effective immediately," he said, as security stepped in to escort him out. Gary didn't get a chance to argue. No one was backing him up. The employees who had once been afraid of him now saw what had just happened, and for the first time in a long while, they felt a shift in the office. A shift towards something better. And that's when I knew it wasn't just about Gary anymore. It was about the culture. It was about what we tolerated. So, I started fixing it. I gave employees a chance to speak up. I set up surveys, anonymous channels where their voices couldn't be silenced. I made it clear this wasn't just about punishing Gary. This was about creating a space where people felt safe, where they were respected, and where they didn't have to be afraid of the very people they worked with. I turned to the room, the same room that had once held nothing but silence and fear. "We're going to do better," I said, my voice strong. "This office will not go back to the way it was." And you know what? We didn't. We didn't just survive. We thrived. But I want to know what you think. Is it enough to change the culture after one big moment like that? Or is it something we all have to keep fighting for every day? What's your experience with toxic workplaces, and how do we fix them? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.